Welcome back. I'm here today with Dennis Wolfe. Dennis is the author of The Sixth Solution, and he is an expert on healthcare. Dennis, welcome to today's show.
Thanks for having me back on. We'll hopefully get some good things going.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here because it's concerning to me. You see this stuff in the news about the so-called Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, and this thing is completely running towards a train wreck.
It's unraveling.
What? Give me some stuff of why did they start this thing in the first place?
Well, it was my contention way back in 2008 when he first ran for office that I felt that if the Democrats were going to gain power as they were going to put this thing right back through again, which we now know they did. And the goal, I believe then, and I believe now, and I will always believe, was that it was never to create a national health care plan, but to create such havoc in 1/6 of our economy with government control that it would create an economic meltdown in this society. And everybody thought that that was just a hilarious conclusion. Well, where are we today?
So what's the final effect that Obamacare will lead to?
Well, there are a couple things. We'll focus on the health side first, and that is that Obamacare right now is creating such chaos in the health insurance, which is the major funder of the cost protection aspect of acquiring and using the healthcare system, that eventually the health insurers are going to say, you know what, they're just going to throw their hands up and they go, we're done. And then the government steps in and said, see, we told you so, they can't do it. You know what, the government's going to do it for you. More big government. That's like throwing the guy that's got two big cement shoes that's called big government. That's like throwing an anchor. It says, here, we can help you, and throwing in more big government. And that's exactly where you're going to see. You know, the one thing that's missing in all this, which is amazing to me, is somehow we've lost sight of one simple word: competition. The insurance industry competes with every single carrier every day. So, and they can't keep the prices down. If you let the federal government take over the entire healthcare system as a single payer type plan, then the only thing they have to do is fund it. And if they have no money to fund it, that's rationing.
So what I don't understand is, and you hear this out in the news media that companies are continuing to drop off the food chain and saying, we're not going to, continue to fund insurance for our employees. We'll just go with the national plan. Yeah. But why doesn't Congress, if this is so bad, why don't they just step in and unfund it and say, we made a mistake?
You know, that's interesting because there are people that, I hate to use that phrase, the talking heads, but all the people out there in the news media, some people are saying that if the Republicans do not step forward as the controlling party in the House of Representatives, which is the controlling body for funding the government, not the Senate, if they don't step forward and defund Obamacare, then what use are they? And I don't know the answer to that because I can't figure it out either. Get rid of this thing. It's a behemoth. It's uncontrollable. Today, UPS today announced, just this morning, prior to us coming into this talk, they announced that they were dropping their spouse coverage for all their 15,000 employees.
Wow. So it continues to unravel.
This thing is getting to be a train wreck beyond. I was in Montana on a radio show a couple of years back, and I said that Max Baucus had to be the dumbest person around. And you know what they said? You can't call him that. Well, what do you call someone that pushes the law through and then as they're leaving, because they need to get their credibility back in their home state, and they go, well, this is a train wreck. Those are Max Baucus's words, senator from Montana, not mine. He knows.
And so the Democrats are starting to call it a train wreck, the Congress, the corporate, the private industry, but we continue to fund it. So
there's a reason, and it's difficult to share on the air. It's difficult to share off the air because it's a conceptual thing that you're dealing with, and that is a mentality of certain leaders in this country that have decided they're just not going to bend.
You've indicated that the Affordable Care Act will eventually, not treat everyone equally per se.
Well, we're seeing that already.
Okay.
We're seeing that already.
Now, the first election, when they put this through, they had exempted a lot of groups. And now they're pulling the exemptions?
Isn't that interesting? That is an insightful comment because that is exactly what I've been saying all along. This government has certain leaders that are inflexible. They will use anybody at any time to get what they want. Their goal is not to help the consumer, the citizen of this country.
So for the typical layman, earning a W-2 and seeing that you got if you're over, what is it? Is it 250?
250,000.
250,000. Now you got to pay an additional 0.9% to fund this.
Sure. Well, that's okay.
And then also on the interest and dividends, the 3%, right?
Yeah.
So where's all of our money going?
Into a big hole. Because, I mean, and then one quick final comment. We talked to before. The Federal Reserve is just giving $85 billion a month to the debt.
Hey, Dennis, we need to take a quick break. I'm visiting here today with Dennis Wolfe. We've been talking about Obamacare and the effect that it's beginning to have on the private sector. That is yours and my health plan. And we're trying to pull this thing apart and see what makes sense. But we need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
With current laws, we have left our children an enormous financial burden. Even though they may be too young to understand it. At GROCO, we care about you and the ones you love, and the quality of your and their lives. Call us today to see how we can help. 877-CPA-2006.
GROCO, helping you along the way.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Dennis Wolfe. We've been talking about Obamacare, this new medical plan that's hitting across the nation and quickly unraveling. Dennis, and you've done radio, you've written books, you've been you're the evangelist on this program. From day one, you said it doesn't work. Well, now that we've gone as far as we've gone, it's becoming apparent. A lot of people are starting to realize that it doesn't work. But let's talk about the middle class.
Okay.
What specifically does this mean to them?
Well, one is affordability. Let's call the act for what its proper name is, the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act. So that affordable word is right there smack in the middle, and this plan is anything but affordable. So what it's going to do to the middle class is it's working in two different directions at the same time. It's like the two walls in the, like Star Wars. Everybody remembers Star Wars where they're about to get crushed. Right. And it's a classic scene in the movie. Well, that's what's happening to the middle class. On one side is a wall pushing with reducing their hours at work, reducing their income, to the point where they're barely able to pay for the things they need, the food, the shelter, gas, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side is the wall of healthcare, which is now 1/6 or 1/5, arguably in some cases, of our nation's economy, and getting more so because of the needs for healthcare for so many more people. That wall is pushing on this side with how do we cover the cost? And with the federal government initially saying you have to buy this insurance, and they are already getting squeezed over here by the number of hours being cut because of Obamacare and the fact that the mandates are in place, they're forcing individuals to buy individual insurance because the company says, we're going to cut your hours so that we don't have to provide you with benefits. So they force them to go over here. But this wall's moving because of what's happening over here.
Well, let's review this. So it applies to the employers with 50 or less employees?
It will eventually. It'll apply to everybody.
Okay, and then what about the hour? Because you hear about the national food chains, cutting hours.
Well, they're cutting hours because they have to provide benefits to full-time employees. That's the mandate.
Okay, so what is a full-time employee?
30 hours a week.
30 hours a week. Okay.
So they're cutting to 29 and a half hours. So if I'm an employee making, let's just say I'm making $700 a week, or let's make it $1,000 a week and 40 hours, and I'm cut to 30 hours, I've just cut my income 25%. So now I've taken my $4,000 a month, forget the math, just $4,000 a month, and I've cut it to $3,000 a month. So now I have less money, and I don't have medical insurance. But over here, this wall over here, Obamacare, is saying, well, you have to have medical insurance, therefore you have to buy it. And the people that are going to buy it from are these exchanges, which are not fully set up or functioning, and the subsidies that are being given are going to run out because that's tax money coming from the tax base.
Yeah.
So eventually the middle class is going to be squeezed to zero.
So what type of a person supports Obamacare?
I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this.
Okay.
A fool.
A fool.
A fool. And I'm not backing down.
And are there a lot of fools out there?
We have at least 51% of this population, because they elected this man president again, has to be a fool. How do you put someone back in office who is putting something like this on the table that's destroying our economy?
Well, so this really isn't about health care at all. It's
As
about
I have
something
said from
bigger.
day one, this has never been about health care. This has been about how do you control a population and destroy it at the same time. Wow. And I get yelled at all the time for this.
Yeah, it's amazing that if that's the case, and it still continues to remain funded, it just seems like Congress needs to get a clue. The Republicans, I think Obama. I heard last week Obama was complaining about the Republican Party standing in the way of Obama.
I know. And my comment to that is, his line was, well, why do we need to have, the Republicans haven't put forth a plan? My comment is, why do they need to? We don't need a plan. The private market was helping.
Well, hey, Dennis, we need to take a quick break. This is all good, learning about how bad this is as it continues
How bad it's
to
gonna
unravel.
get.
But I want to come back. I want to talk about about the mandates. What's going to happen in 2015? And why the employer mandate has been delayed. Okay. We'll be right back after these messages.
He's the world's most trustworthy man. Tax filing deadlines are scheduled around his vacation calendar. The IRS agent who audited his client apologized.
I don't always advise people on their taxes, but when I do, I save them every penny legally possible.
GROCO CPAs and Advisors.
Come to GROCO and stay wealthy, my friend.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Dennis Wolfe. Dennis is the author of The Sixth Solution, the National Plan for Healthcare, and also an expert on the Obamacare package, appearing on several national radio shows, and well-versed in this national healthcare disaster. Hey, Dennis, tell me, why has the employer mandate been delayed? Well, first of all, let's talk about what the mandate is for Obamacare.
I'm going to do very simple here. The mandate simply is what it says. It's a mandate that all employers must provide health insurance. And in fact, everyone has to have health insurance or some kind of health care cost protection. Let's just make it real simple.
Okay.
It was originally supposed to take place January 1st, 2014. The exchanges that are being set up now, which are not completely ready to go, are going to affect individuals. And then the employers were going to be started January 1st, 2014. And then President Obama, all by himself, said, I'm just not going to follow the law. As the president and the chief executive officer, whose sole constitutional duty is to execute the law as it's written, has said, I'm going to ignore that and delay it for a year.
Really?
One has to ask oneself, why? And the answer is really simple, because we have an election coming up in 2014.
It's a Republican.
That's exactly right. And again, as I said before, this law was never about health care. If it's so important, then why don't you have the mandate right now?
If the Republicans lose a House, there's nothing holding back.
You'll have 2 years of uninterrupted power.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It would be scary because right now they're holding him in check. And yet if he can delay this mandate, and the question is, well, what's wrong with it then? And the answer is real simple, because it cannot be done. It's going to create chaos beyond chaos. And I know this from 1989, when Section 89 was introduced, passed by the Democrat-controlled Congress, House and Senate, signed by President George H.W. Bush, and then subsequently within the same year, that Congress repealed it because it was unworkable, and it was just unbelievably tedious bureaucratic mazes of paperwork for companies.
Let's talk about healthcare laws, and how does this raise our out-of-pocket maximums?
Well, that's another issue now. They've already come to the realization that they can't deliver the cost of the insurance at an affordable.
But don't we, in the healthcare arena right now, aren't we paying a lot of money into the private sector, to the drug, pharmaceutical
Yeah,
companies?
we are. And everything you see now is going to double or triple under Obamacare. And the proof is that in order for them to bring this to an affordable cost, to make these exchanges look attractive, they've had to raise the maximum out-of-pocket benefit to levels that are way above what private insurance right now is offering. And the only way they can do that is because the insurance companies say, we can't deliver a product that's going to insure that for that price.
So when we look at our healthcare, Recently I have a friend who's over in Canada. And in the same apartment complex, there was a guy from the U.S. Suddenly became sick. Well, they said rather than send him to the medical clinic in Canada, they shipped him back to the U.S.
Who's they?
The group that he was working with.
The employer or the insurance?
Employer,
okay, the employer.
They didn't want him to go through the Canadian healthcare system. They said the
fine.
U.S. is much better.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. The interesting thing is he would have probably been fine, depending on the severity of his illness, because the Canadian system would have loved it, because they bill the United States. People don't know this.
Yeah, but I think the point that they brought out is, first of all, it was the delay in getting into the appointment, and then the second is the quality of health care. They felt the U.S. was better.
The U.S. is better. In fact, it's so much better that in 1992, when I met personally with the provincial health plan manager of the Nova Scotia region, she informed me that the reason their plan functions so well up there is because at the end of the year, when they run out of money, they send all their people over the United States across the border for their health care. And then when their New Year's budget kicks in, they get the bills come in, they pay the bills back.
So we have
we are actually exporting health care to Canada right now.
We have one of the best healthcare systems in the world right now.
Yes, we do.
So this thing about the Affordable Health Care Act, which basically in short is socialized medicine,
exactly,
is designed really to take the system down.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Because if you can take away all the financial incentives, we don't have time to go into everything here, but just look at this device tax. It's a 2% tax, and people think, well, that's not so bad, except that it's on the gross dollars in sales for these companies that make medical devices. And some of them only have 3-4% bottom line taxable after their net taxable income. So if you take away 2% at the top, you've literally destroyed their taxable income base. Where does the retained earnings go? Do they even get any retained earnings to reinvest?
Dennis, you made the comment before. You said this law will bring about a complete economic meltdown. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just started to cover part of it right there. If you have companies that are not investing in taking care of creating new devices or different things to help people, then that market's going to go away. So when people need a new device, it's not there. So this device tax is really a regressive tax to destroy the modernization, the continuing modernization of the technology in our healthcare delivery system. When you have a system that ultimately leads to the government takeover of healthcare, you have rationing. I have been to England so many times I've lost count, and every single time, the first thing I turn on when I turn on the TV, the first thing I hear is the new corruption discovered in the NHS, the National Health Service. In Scotland, they have employees in Scotland's emergency room, nurses, doctors, taking mandatory self-defense classes because of the huge immigrant population that's over there that doesn't even speak English, that demands health care. They have to fight to protect themselves. What kind of system is that? And so when you have the point where people aren't getting any health care because the services aren't available or the modern techniques aren't available, then you start to bring the system down into a chaos. People will fight. I can't get cancer treatment, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, I'm visiting today here with Dennis Wolfe. He's an expert on the Obamacare. Also written a book called The Sixth Solution, and we've been talking about this national health care plan and what's coming down. The more employers, the UPS today announced that they were no longer going to cover spouses. Seems like companies are just cutting costs there. Hey, Dennis, I'm going to hold you on for another segment.
Okay.
And I want to talk about this whole community pooling of national health care and how it's going to affect the citizens. Right now, how the IRS enforcing health care. Hey, Dennis, we'll be right back after these messages, and we'll get more into this.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Dennis Wolfe. He's an expert on the National Healthcare Plan, or Obamacare, and we've been talking about the effect that it will have on you. They've delayed implementation till 2015. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it looks like they want to wait till after the election. Sure. And you mentioned, but by design, that to try to get the Republicans out of control.
I suffer no delusions on this.
Okay.
The bottom line is it's all politics.
Yeah.
If I can destroy the credibility of the other party and possibly swing a key precinct or a few key precincts in a district and take out a marginally elected Republican, maybe do that maybe to 10 or 15 different people, I've switched back control of Congress.
Well, what do you think? It's IRS enforcing health care.
Classic.
What's this all about?
The IRS should only be used as a collection tool when it's a localized mandate, which is part of my book. I absolutely know that the IRS can play an important role. This is not the case now. We're now being pushed into accepting the IRS apologize for the word, but there's another word to explain it historically, into a Gestapo type role, where they can literally pound on your door and demand to see what you've done if you're not paying for health insurance. The IRS is a necessary part of our country, whether people like to admit it or not. We have to have a taxation system to support our government. But when you give them an unaccountable control with thousands of agents who have this unlimited power, that becomes a questionable aspect of what the IRS is there to do.
So, Dennis, what is community pooling?
Well, that's an interesting aspect of where this thing is going. One of the things they did was they structured these, they being the government, the Obamacare, the Department of Health and Human Services, Kathy Sebelius, the Secretary, et cetera. They set up a community pooling rate structure in the legislation so that the majority of the cost is ultimately going to be structured into 3 different categories of premiums. The elderly are not going to pay as much, under 64, forget Medicare and above. Yeah. 60 to 64 rates are going to drop a little bit in theory. The middle class will probably, the middle age group will probably be about the same. Where do you think all the premium is going to be pushed onto? The youth. They can't find work. They can't have, the jobs they do have aren't going to create enough income, and they have to have health insurance, and their rates are going to go from here, maybe double it, what they currently are, which already they say they can't afford it. So guess what their solution is? I'll just pay the penalty to the IRS, which is only a few $100s, except that it climbs to $2,000 or more in a couple of years. Interestingly enough, after the 2000.
Now, isn't also the penalty towards insurance companies or employers that are currently providing private insurance that a lot of them are just saying, why even try on the private side?
Well, the group plans are still there, but the private, buying individual insurance is going to be a burden. Most employers are going, forget it. Forget it. And there are pockets in the country. Silicon Valley, this area, you'll see companies will still provide.
If a person has enough money, they can still have health care.
They'll still have health care.
So isn't this really against the middle class and the majority of the people?
Goes back to those 2 walls.
And why isn't Congress included in this? What's your
They've
theory?
exempted themselves, haven't they?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then Obama decided that he would fund that with another exemption. The bottom line is that this is all by design, and there's a great strategy out there. I would encourage all of your listeners to look up Cloward Piven. That's CLOWARD, like coward with an L in front. Cloward -Piven, Piven strategy. It's well documented on Wikipedia. You can Google it. They'll learn an awful lot about the sole goal of all this is to keep one party in power. And I thought we had a 2-party system, or at least a representative form of a republic. We're losing that.
Well, it seems like we're evolving into a new system. And, for good or for bad, it's new. And I think that people are not familiar with the ground here. I think at the bottom line, if healthcare fails or becomes substantially substandard from what it is now, there's going to be a large outcry in this nation.
When you have people already happening that their benefits are being denied. Yesterday, as example, I took my wife to her doctor, and he said he cannot do that procedure anymore.
Hey, Dennis, we're out of time today. Yeah, this is all good, though. I'm going to have you back another day because I think that the further we go, healthcare is going to be,
Can't wait till October 1st. Exchanges.
All right, Dennis Wolfe, thanks for joining today's show. And thanks for being here on America Dreams. Join us again next week right here on AM 1220 KDOW.